My name is Skylar Simpson, and this is an assignment for Miss Meyers' class. Today, I will be explaining the hero's journey on the events in The Once and Future King, written by T.H. White. Let's start with the call to adventure. The call to adventure is when you go from the known to the unknown, and every single hero goes through this. The Wart, or King Arthur, young King Arthur, goes from the known, which is kind of just he's a nobody, to the unknown, which is being a king. How does he do this? Well, with the help of Merlin, and this is where the call to adventure starts. Merlin is this wizard or magician, and he teaches Arthur a bunch of different lessons through turning him into different animals, like a fish or like a bird. Arthur goes through many different adventures in each animal. A different animal teaches him different aspects of being a king. For example, his time as a goose, he learned that humans are really the only animal that has wars. As his time as an ant, he learned how important communication is. And he does this because he can see in the future and already knows Arthur's going to be this great king, but he needs a little push, to help Arthur. Arthur learns a bunch of different valuable lessons from getting turned into different animals. Most of all, the most important one being, he knows the hardships of kingship now. Although he hasn't been a king yet, he just has learned a bunch of different challenges through being these different animals. This would be the supernatural aid of the hero's journey because, Merlin is magically turning Arthur into all these creatures. Next is the threshold, or the transformation. The beginning of King Arthur's transformation is when he finally pulls this sword out from the stone. When he pulls this sword out of the stone, he becomes a king because legend has it, if you pull this sword out of the stone, you'll become the Queen of England. Once he pulls it out, he has people bowing at his feet, and he realizes that he's the king now. Once Arthur sees that, Hector and Kay are literally bowing at his feet, he starts to realize that this is real. At first, he doesn't accept that he's the king, but over time, he gets used to it. At this point, King Arthur is going from the known to the unknown, which is kingship. After Arthur takes the sword out of the stone and he becomes King Arthur, he faces many challenges in the unknown part of the hero's journey. Most importantly, the battle between King Arthur and the Gaelic people. King Arthur's mentor and helper, I'd say, would be Merlin throughout this whole thing, because he's still educating him to be a better knight and a better king. Next is the Abyss. In the Abyss is when the protagonist reaches the hardest challenge in his entire life, and he uses this challenge to become a better person. The Abyss in this book would be when he's trying to figure out a way to solve and beat this war. He questions himself, and he doesn't know if he can really do it, but Merlin helps him. Merlin educates him about knighthood and what it means to be a knight. Although King Arthur is a king and not a knight, he could still learn some valuable lessons from Merlin's teaching. Through a lot of training, mentally and physically, Arthur finally defeats the Gaels. After defeating the Gaels, Arthur finally learns what it means to be a good king. Merlin still teaches him after this. Mostly teaches him about might and right. Arthur wants to use might only for right. The outcome of this is Arthur finally making this round table where everybody's equal. This would be the transformation after the Abyss, because Arthur learns that being equal is a good chivalry. After all this, Arthur transforms from the unknown to the known. Arthur never goes back to his old life, but he's so well educated in the life he is now that it's not unknown to him anymore, now it's known, so he never returns to the life he once was, like he once was at. But after this, he gets a gift from the goddess, which would be Guinevere. Concludes the hero's journey in The Once and Future King. I know there's a whole nother story with Lancelot having an affair in like section or like part 3 of the book, but I didn't really feel like that followed the hero's journey all too well, so I won't be going over that. Personally, I did not really like this book because part like different parts of the book really confused me, and it really annoyed me when it went on a whole tangent about Lancelot, and it kind of took away Arthur's story, which I kind of enjoyed, but Lancelot's story was kind of just was not fun to read. So I rather just go back to Arthur. So pretty much everything, in my opinion, after the first 2 books was boring.